Hello, so today we are going to take a look at this Kotlin API called coerce. Kotlin has these different coerce functions that are prefixed with coerce. So we have coerceAtLeast, coerceAtMost, and then we have coerceIn. So we are just going to take a look at each of them and see when to use them and how they can be useful. So for example, coerceAtLeast gets passed a value considered a minimum value, and what it does is it ensures that this value is not less than the specified minimum value. So you call it on something, so you call it, let's say, on some value, and it ensures that x is not less than the specified minimum value. So what it will return is either x if x is bigger than the minimum value, otherwise it will return the minimum value. So let's take a look at an example to understand. So let's say here I have -1, and one way to write this is let's say we have a variable, and we want, if the value is negative, we want to return 0, but if the value is positive, we want to return the value. So one way to write that is to say if the value is positive, then return the value, otherwise return 0. But this is a little bit, you could argue that it's a little bit harder to understand, like you have to read an if statement to understand it, but the same thing can be accomplished with coerceAtLeast, which means, and so you can pass 0, and what this would say is that if the value is bigger than 0, return the value. If it's less, return 0. So don't go below the minimum value, essentially, that's what it is. And so here, if we pass -1, it should give us 0. So let's see this first example here. Okay, let's actually comment these other ones just so we can see only the first example. Okay, so coerceAtLeast. So if we take a look at the first example, result 1 gives us 0. Same thing does result 2, 0 as well. If we pass something greater than 0, let's say 4, we get 4, right? So that's what coerceAtLeast does. Now let's take a look at a little bit more sophisticated example here. So the second example actually is possible because coerceAtLeast can take any type that implements comparable. So it's not just integers like we saw in the first example. It can take anything that implements comparable. So if we take a look at Kotlin documentation, so that can be bytes implements comparable, short, long, float, double, or any other type that you implement yourself that implements comparable. And so what this would mean is that we can actually apply to dates. So for example here, if we take a look at date, day of week, yeah, so for example, let's take a look at day of week, because it's definitely an enum, but it has a value, right, that we can compare against. So let's see here what we do. So if let's say Wednesday, we coerce it to at least Monday, right? So we will get Wednesday, right? Because Monday is before Wednesday, so it is smaller. Monday is considered bigger than Wednesday is considered bigger than Monday, right? And so the minimum is Monday, and since Wednesday is bigger, we can just return Wednesday. However, if we, let's say, have Wednesday and coerceAtLeast to Friday, since Friday is after Wednesday, right? That means that Wednesday is below the minimum, which is Friday, so we need to replace with Friday, right? And so this example too, if we run it, you can see for the first example, it returns Wednesday, right? Because Monday is the minimum, Wednesday is bigger, so it's good, so we can return Wednesday. But for the second example, Friday is the minimum, Wednesday is smaller, and so we return Friday, right? So that's coerceAtLeast. So you apply it to a type that implements comparable. It can be called on any type that implements comparable, and it's passed the minimum of this of the same type, a minimum value of the same type. And if the value is smaller than the minimum value, it returns the minimum value. If it's bigger, it returns that value, right? Okay, so that's for coerceAtLeast. Now let's see coerceAtMost, which is a little bit similar. So what coerceAtMost does is it gets passed this time a maximum value instead of versus a minimum value that we had in coerceAtLeast. So it gets passed a maximum value, and it ensures that the value it's called at, again, it's called at on a value here. It ensures that this value is not greater than the specified maximum value. So what this would mean is that if x is bigger than the maximum value, we would return the maximum value. If it's smaller, let's take a look here at the documentation again. So it will return this value if it's less than, so if the value is less than or equal to the maximum value, it will return it. But if it's bigger, it will return the maximum value. So that's what it does. And you can see here it's implemented on int. And if we, yeah, so let's run the first example here. So the first example, we say coerce 10 to at most 2. So 10 is bigger than 2, so we should get 2, right? So here we should get 2. Coerce at most 10 to 34. 10 is smaller than 34, so we should get 10. So we should get the value, right? So let's see the first example here. Okay, so it returns 2 and 10, so that works. The next example is in a similar example to what we had in with the dates in coerceAtLeast. So let's see that one. So this one, so we'll take Friday, right? And we want to coerce it to Saturday. So Saturday is bigger than Friday, right? And so Friday is below the maximum, so we want to return the value itself. And so we return Friday. However, let's say we say Friday coerce it to at most Wednesday, right? So Wednesday is smaller than Friday, right? So that means Friday is bigger than the maximum value. And so we want to return the maximum value, so we return Wednesday. So let's see this. Yep, so since Friday is smaller than Saturday, right, we just return Friday. Since Friday is bigger than Wednesday, we return the maximum value, which is Wednesday, right? Okay, so that's for coerceAtMost. So pretty similar to coerceAtLeast, right? It's just that now it's you are coercing to a maximum value instead of to a minimum value. Okay, so the last one on this type of API with coerce is coerceIn. And so what coerceIn does is it gets passed. So you of course pass it an x, you call it on an x value that implements comparable, and so so any type that implements comparable it can work on, but it can also work on primitives like int, long, float, double, those kind of primitives, right? But it can also work on any comparable, right? So here for coerceIn, let's just do coerceIn as well. So it coerceIn makes sure that the value is in the specific range, which means that it's kind of a combination of coerceAtLeast and coerceAtMost, right? So it returns the value if it's in the range, right? But if it's below the minimum value, it returns minimum value. And if it's bigger or greater than the maximum value, then it returns the maximum value, right? So it kind of makes sure that it stays in that range. If the value is closer, like less than the minimum value, it returns the minimum value. If it's bigger than the maximum value, it returns the maximum value. And again, we have it on these primitives. And if we take a look at this coerceIn example, simple example, so we want to coerce 1 to the range 2 and 6. So 1 is not in the range, right? And it's smaller. So we want to return the minimum value since it's smaller than the minimum value. So here we should return 2. And let's say for 10 in this range, it's bigger than the range, right? So we're going to return the maximum value 10. And what if we take, let's take an example that is in the range. So 4 is in the range, so we should just return 4, right? So let's run this. Okay, so we can see, sorry, here I made a mistake. So 10, when occurs to be in the range, 10 is bigger than the range, but it's bigger than the maximum value 6, so we're going to return 6. So that's why, if we run it again, we have 6 here, 2, and 4, right? So this is working. Okay, let's take a look at the second example that is using the day of the week. So for this example, let's say we take the working days, so days of the week, the work week, essentially, so from Monday to Friday. So these are the working days. So since we use this range here, it will just give us Monday, Tuesday, all the way till Friday, right? And let's say Wednesday is in the range of working days, right? And so if we curse in working days, we should get Wednesday, right? Because it's in the range. However, Saturday is not in the range of working days, but Saturday is but Saturday is bigger than the maximum value of the range, which is Friday, right? So we want to return the maximum value, so we return Friday. A similar thing for if we want to coerce Friday to the weekend, let's say Saturday and Sunday, it's not in the range, right? But it's smaller than Saturday. So it's smaller than the first value of the range, the minimum value of the range. So we're going to return that value, that minimum. So we return Saturday, right? If it was Monday, let's actually do Monday. So if Monday should give us Sunday, right? Oh, sorry, actually, because the range is here, right? Monday is and Friday and then Saturday. So Monday is before Saturday, right? And so it should give us Saturday, actually. Sorry about that. So it's not the closer value, it's whether it's smaller or bigger, right? And so you can see here we get Wednesday, we get Friday, and we get Saturday for both, right? Yeah, so that's pretty much it for these methods. They are sometimes useful if you start doing these if and else. Sometimes it's more complicated, especially like with seconds remaining time, like in a range. Sometimes you want to coerce it to not be negative, but you don't want it to pass a certain duration. Let's say, for example, that's an example where I found it to be useful. Yeah, so yeah, this is pretty much it for this for these 3 methods. Thanks for watching and see you on the next one. Bye.